Hello, governors! Welcome here to London. We are ready to start our quarterfinals. I am David Freak Turley, here to bring you guys all of today's actions with, my favorite of colleagues. We've got Mitch Crepo, whose last name is too long to pronounce properly.
All right, mate.
Wonderful. Force pulse, whatever. And the recently knighted Sir Joshua Jat Leesman.
I didn't know that happened.
Yeah, it didn't actually happen.
Okay, then.
But it was on the prompter, so I read it.
Starting off telling lies already.
Yeah, it's mostly how this goes. Either way, guys, we are getting ourselves into the game. It's going to be an absolutely wonderful one here. As you heard the players talk about, the FlashWolves, most of them formerly known as the Gamma Bears, were at Worlds a couple years ago, had a really short run. Here, they topped their group, including Coup Tigers. Many didn't even expect them to get out of the group, so honestly, so far, it's already been a great World Championship for the FlashWolves.
Yeah, and I think both these teams were happy to kind of get each other in the draw. As strange as this sounds, Origen was really excited when they realized they had FlashWolves. But I think FlashWolves was kind of happy about Origen. Early game-wise, these guys have actually been pretty weak. They have been able to pull out games, obviously, so this has the looks of a very long and fascinating series.
Yeah, London, definitely conserve your energy. This may go long, especially post 30 minutes is when these teams get bloody. So 0 to 15. Kind of dull, especially with FlashWolves, averaging like, what, 1 kill in those phases of the game.
Yeah.
But then later on, if you go post 30, then you get these massive AoE team fights that we're waiting for.
And right now, actually, I'm not surprised though. We'll see the FlashWolves bans right here. The Callista was first picked every single time Origen could have for Niels, and Elise is actually something that FlashWolves didn't even play.
Yeah, and we also heard the analyst desk talking about how blue side was a decent-sized advantage in this game. And also these bans, it's mainly because the red side has to ban the Mordekaiser and the Gangplank. At least that's what we expected in these games. What we weren't expecting here is we thought the Jinx was actually going to be banned because NL has been so dominant on it, averaging 971 damage per minute on Jinx, which is the most of anyone at Worlds by far.
Yeah, that's mostly due to the fact that these games go long and you have a lot of AoE defense, but even with that into account, he still does significantly more damage than anybody else in similar roles on that Jinx pick. So Origen should be building an anti-Jinx comp if they leave it open.
Well, interesting, they didn't remove Tahm Kench either, so we expect that to come through at some point here for Sword Art. And as far as stealing the Jinx away, we don't think that's very likely either. NL might pick it up this round, but even if Origen had the chance, Niels is not exactly a prolific Jinx player.
Well, we know that FlashWolves is willing to early pick the Jinx because it's been so dominant for them, and we're pretty sure that Niels can play Jinx. It's just not anywhere near his top played in solo queue. On his main solo queue account, he had something like 12 Jinx games. Yeah, and as a clarification on that stat we just mentioned, 52% more damage per game NL deals than the average Jinx at Worlds. So he's really been proficient on that champion. With that said, though, the Gragas is great at displacing Jinxes in team fights.
FlashWolves did their scouting, and Soas probably surprises them here with the early Darius pick. They haven't played it so far in the tournament, so top laner Stake obviously has played both Darius and the counter matchup Gnar, so he's proficient in this matchup, but it is a new pick from Soas.
And on top of that, as far as being red side, Origen has last picked their top laner 2 out of 3 times. It's something that seemed likely for Origen, especially considering the perceived mismatch between Soaz and Stake. What this means is we're probably going to see Peke actually get the counter pick.
Looking at this draft, this is where Mithy usually goes for a Thresh in a lot of these situations, so it would actually be surprising if he locks in that Alistar.
Well,
Surprise.
Surprise?
Yep.
Tiny surprise.
A little bit surprised.
I feel like Alistar's really big to be a small surprise. I feel like he's one of the biggest surprises you could go for in League of Legends.
Yeah, well, surprisingly, Alistar's dropped off a substantial amount here at Worlds.
And we're talking the build of the champion is a big Minotaur.
We're already going down that road.
Yes, we are, Jat.
Physically, he is a big surprise.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Well, here we go. FlashWolves, the last few champions. No surprises here. The 3rd LeBlanc game of the tournament for Maple. His proficiency for Assassins at 7 out of 7 Assassins so far at Worlds. And Sword Art's Morgana also. Standard, a little bit surprised not to see Tahm Kench, but Morgan is.
I think Origen's already looking for a lane swap with these picks because the bot lane matchup, it plays so easily. Morgana Jinx plays so easily into a melee support with Sivir. You never get punished almost. You can pretty much control the tempo of the lane. And then in that top lane, you have the Gnar counter pick to Darius overall. So I would expect some map movements at least to scout out where the lanes are settling in for Origen.
And FlashWolves has got to be really happy with this draft so far. They pretty much have nothing but comfort for the people that are playing these champions. And not only did they get comfort, they also got counter picks in a lot of situations. Gnar is seen as, once he gets ahead, a counter to the Darius pick. Morgana has been spectacular against Alistar so far at Worlds. It's one of the reasons for the fall-off. And counter-picking a mid lane against the wall isn't something that is actually that easy to do.
Unless the Nivea is the counter pick that no one ever knew about except for Froggen. So this is going to be a fun one. Peke running
The old graph.
Yeah.
Counter picks in mid lane. Nivea, 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 Nivea. When you get to a Nivea blank, no counter pick there.
This is going to be interesting. So Origen, the only bans picks they got to really spend here was that third Lulu ban of the first pick, Darius. All they've done as far as options was limit stake down to a Gnar. Everything else, FlashWolves got to pick whatever they wanted.
But I mean, look at Origen. They have such a beefy front line. Darius combined with Gragas and then Alistar support. Then that requires 2 heavy damage dealers. I don't think a Nivea Sivir really suit that role. They can ramp up a lot of damage over time in fights, but it's rough.
Well, even in Nivea, you have to kill twice. If we're trying to think of Maple, who has carried multiple games on the Blanc so far, group stage, like destroying someone at the start of the team fight, really hard to do here against a Spell Shield, an Egg, an Alistar, a Gragas, and a Darius. Like, he doesn't have very many good targets to hit, and in that way, Origen has picked a pretty smart team.
And that's what's great about those then is then it puts even more onto NL's shoulders. Maple can't burst almost anyone. Okay, we know that one, but you still got this Jinx who's putting the highest damage per minute of the entire tournament, so maybe it's a lot on NL. We'll see if that happens because, guys, we are getting ourselves into game 1 of the quarterfinals, and you, as always at home, are part of the experience. Tweet at Lollies with the hashtag FWWin or hashtag OGWin. Let us know who it's going to come down to. Of course, this is a best of 5. A team has to destroy 3 Nexi over the course of the series to win the whole thing. So as we open the first game in London, let me hear you one more time. We are into game 1 of the quarterfinals.
And also, for the fans as well as the viewers at home, make sure you're conserving your energy for this matchup.
So don't do this.
They didn't get
if
the
you're
memo.
behind your television right now, don't shout.
So, this is such an interesting matchup because FlashWolves and Origen, while they did win in the group, there's a stat called bloodiness, which is the combined kills and deaths in a game. Within the first 15 minutes of the game, the FlashWolves have averaged 1.6 kills or deaths across all of their games in group stage, which is by far the lowest of any team at Worlds. And Origen is the 3rd lowest at 5.2, which is substantially higher, but still incredibly low. So as far as the first 15 minutes of the game here, we were really wondering what the stylistic mismatches were and how they were going to play out.
Yeah, definitely looking at just how slow FlashWolves approach the game. They don't go for any kills. First bloods don't happen until probably after 10 minutes, if I remember correctly. They don't take any first towers. They're a very good reactionary team overall. If you make a play, they have a good reaction, but they're very much so not proactive at all. So this could give you a very stale early 10 minutes.
And when we've been watching their games from the group stage as well, FlashWolves has some negative CS differentials, specifically Stake. He's usually down around 10 CS, whereas Soaz is up around 7 CS, so is Niels, and Peke's been holding his own. But Origen has substantially more deaths in the early game because they're playing their lanes very aggressively and have been punishable by ganks, which will be the question of whether FlashWolves is aggressive enough to take those opportunities or if they're just going to get bullied by Origen in lane.
And that's what's so interesting, just to sort of show you guys the level of sort of over-aggression. Niels, Mithy, and Soaz are combined 3 and 18 in the first 50 minutes of the game. But as you guys mentioned, FlashWolves don't take many early kills, so the question is, will Karsa show up in these lanes and punish that over-aggression?
Yeah, they have those CS differentials positive with all those deaths, which shows you how well they're actually CSing.
Right, both bot lanes now heading into the laning phase. Both got a camp, so we could actually see more explosiveness than we've been used to. So far in this tournament, very few lanes have actually taken a camp. NL and Sword are already level 2. Miffy's looking for that experience. He's caught out in the brush here, so we're going to eat some damage and be zoned off that way for a bit.
Wow, yeah, and Sordar actually did have Binding. It was down for a short time, so Miffy was able to walk up for a bit, but they both match level 2 here.
Yeah. So that means Miffy is likely going to skill heal and just end up playing sustain, unless he goes for combo and some aggression. Oh, he's going in.
Goes right in.
Double knock-up in, and Elspeth's drone, but Ignite is on. Black Shield mean nothing. There is already a first blood. There is a time where Black Shield was down, and it got abused.
This is such a bold move. Whenever you bully an Alistar early, you force him to skilling heal. Mr. says, none of that. We're going in, and they go on NL. The hard carry for late game Flash was finally blood already.
Who needs heal on Alistar when you can kill somebody?
Level up, heal that way.
Yeah, that is so huge for Origen's lane, especially with the standard laning phases. FlashWolves just overstepped their bounds. They were a little bit too aggressive, and now the question is, will it get turned around? Karsa would be in position for a gank.
But Amazing's coming down. Mithy does not have Flash. He just burned it now. He's running away from a Binding, and Karsa will end the knockup. Now there are multiple TPs available, and the team is coming in. Karsa now on the wrong side. A Flash body slam by Amazing. Gets the second kill for for Origen.
And this has been such an improvement here for Origen. When we saw them fall apart towards the end of the last day of group stage, a lot of it was in the early ganks and not matching teleports with the likes of LGD or KT. Here they have more teleports than FlashWolves, so as matched stake. Peke could not be matched by Maple, and it ended up just kind of drawing them off of it so that Origen could turn that around. Spectacular start for Origen.
Absolutely incredible here. So you talk about the fact that your lanes are supposed to be winning anyway, so as in fact already ahead of stake. The teleports got canceled on both sides essentially here, but now just everyone's doing incredibly well. Even Peke's ahead in lane.
Yeah, as these lanes progress, Stake should pull ahead of SOAS, and honestly, if you play it 10 times, NL and Swordart should win that lane 6 or 7 times, but they just got outplayed. They didn't respect the fact that Mithy had combo. He didn't even have to use his flash, so he preserved his flash, which allowed him then to turn that gank around. Karsa got counter ganked by Amazing.
He can break the black shield. No, he can't do enough damage in time.
Gotta wait for the barrel.
Yep.
Yeah, they needed to wait for the Gragas barrel to pop, break the black shield, because it's only a rank 1 black shield on a 21 ability power early game Morgana.
Or space out your combo.
Still worth 84.
Kill the black shield with your W, wait, then knock. But it's tough to do that on stage.
Yeah, speaking of that though, players will naturally make more mistakes as the stage gets bigger because the pressure increases throughout this. FlashWolves beforehand wasn't necessarily expected to win that group. They came into the second day with 1 and 2, maybe not as much pressure on them, but now against Origen on this bigger stage, they were confident in that bottom lane fight and overextended, which is one of the reasons they now have to play from a hole.
I'm actually very interested to see how this mid lane matchup plays out. LeBlanc into Anivia. Seems incredibly hard to land that Q, and I want to know what Pekka's going to do build-wise overall. If he keeps this very slow build, or he alters it into more of a teens-oriented build, so he's defensive against the LeBlanc, and has more wave clear and CDR to just keep the pressure up. Because if Maple's allowed to roam, he could balance out that early advantage that Origen have acquired so far.
Yeah, and the only game we have to judge this off of is when Peke played Anivia against TSM in their first game at Worlds here, and he went the very slow build. Peke did a Catalyst into a Tear of the Goddess, but it was against TSM, a team that doesn't make many moves early on in the game. And as far as the scouting report goes, FlashWolves has not taken much initiative either. They generally wait for the other team to engage on them and then are very good at reacting. So I would actually expect maybe Peke works in a little bit of magic resist, but I'd expect the slow build of Anivia here as well.
Yeah, Rod of Ages into a teens is a possibility, or even early at teens. If you farm enough, you can go into Roa afterwards. But SOAS, he continues to have this push pressure in the top lane, which we don't expect to see in this matchup. And honestly, Karsa should have probably swung around to even that out.
Yeah, one of the biggest benefits here for Origen is because they were able to get those kills early. Amazing and the rest of Origen have been able to get some wards deep within the jungle of FlashWolves. You can see a ward right in the perfect area between the Gromp and the blue buff, which is why SOAS has been so safely able to push up there, not to mention the pink ward he has in the river. Very few areas of attack if Karsa actually wanted to stop that push.
And Amazing's already doing it some more. He's got the Raptor buff on him, so he knows there's no ward spotting this invade. He's making sure everything's the way it needs to be. And he's up on the top side in case there is some kind of dive to be had. Looks like that's not the case, though, as Niels on the bad side of it. His support is not around, still taking a ton of damage. 200 HP, and now comes the teleports. Peke and SOAS both have them. They're both in already. The wall missed, but NL loses his flash as soon as he gets it back. SOAS lands the apprehend. 2 more attacks will do it. Swordart's already dead. He's gonna bleed to death. NL makes it 4 deaths, and Origen are incredibly far ahead.
A complete opposite of what the stats have shown us. We prepared for this match. We prepared for a very dull early game right now. Amazing, though, has to get away from Maple.
Looks like we brought up Parental Sharpness because it's certainly anything but dull here. Amazing trying to run out. Maple puts in the Ignite. W will kill him. Under the turret he goes. FlashWolves get their first kill of the game.
Maple's going to have to do a whole lot more of that because everyone else on the team is actually losing pretty substantially. Love the teleport usage by Origen. They are absolutely capitalizing on, for FlashWolves, what is a surprisingly aggressive duo lane, letting them play the Jinx, overpowering them when they push far, and punishing Jinx for the low mobility.
In all of group stages, all games combined, Origen got a total of 3 kills. In this match, they've already exceeded that. They got 4 early game kills here. We see Niels, he gets engaged on, but he can wait. And then he can wait for Mythic to come in and then double teleport is allowing Origen to punish his play. This is the first time really we've seen in group stages that they can punish plays with proactive teleports. when we watched the VODs, Origen was either second to teleport or not teleporting at all, or putting themselves in positions where they could get outplayed by a teleport. This time, they're mastering that summoning spell.
And every time FlashWolves try to fight the bottom lane, something goes wrong for them, overstepping past an Alistar, getting TP'd on and behind, and not respecting the double teleport at all is really hurting FlashWolves here.
Yeah, the 3 kill stat you just mentioned, Krepa, was in the first 10 minutes of the game throughout all of group stage, so they have surpassed that with a very active early game thus far, and FlashWolves hasn't responded well. Watching all of FlashWolves games during group stages, you know, they've always actually been a slow team, second slowest average game time in the LMS, so it's kind of out of character for them to make aggressive moves. Normally they're very good at reacting to aggressive moves and punishing, but that hasn't necessarily been the case here. We'll see how many turrets they can trade back to keep this game close.
Well, you're going to see that trade not going to happen just yet as the bot lane does get cleared away for a little bit there. Maple looking for an aggressive play. The stun will not land though. Peke doesn't get the Q out in time. Mid lane turret's taking plenty of damage, but bot lane still being sieged upon. And the 3-man group is far too much for Amazing to deal with. FlashWolves get their first turret of the game.
We also have to mention how hideously far behind NL is. He's gone an Avarice Blade and a Longsword, whereas Niels has completed the BF Sword. Sometimes you get the BF Sword to pickaxe mismatch. This is a BF Sword to a long sword, to a very small sword mismatch.
That's true, comparatively.
NL has to be able to swap around, but honestly, where does he actually go? It is so difficult to push against an Anivia with a blue buff in the mid lane. And if he goes to the top side, they lose even more dragon pressure and pressure on them.
Now this is what Origen very often does well, is where they farm well in split lanes. They play the map on 3 lanes. What they do poorly though is that they die very often trying to farm.
Well, he should have the egg. Plenty of damage there onto Peke. Maple will not take the double damage Frostbite there. And yeah, you're seeing Maple, the one bright spot, the only guy with kills, not even an assist on it, still trying to do work for FlashWolves.